Mike here, CBI Off-Road. Today we're going to be showing you how to install the Gladiator bed rack. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our hardware ready. So you're going to have our slide nuts that are going to go inside the rails. We have some bolts here that are going to be bolting into these to hold the sides of the rack in place. And we have some 5/16 button heads with washers and nylocks that are going to hold the crossbars on. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to slide these into place, and there's going to be 3 on each side. These just kind of you set them in, push them back, and they're in there. And you want to put this side out. It just gives you a little bit of extra grabbing there when you try and put the bolts in. If you don't have that side out, you may have trouble trying to get the bolt to reach all the way in to grab this. So put those in place on each side, and then we can put a part of the rack up here. All right, so we're gonna grab one of our sides. We're gonna go ahead and set this thing up here. All right, with this thing in place, we can now see where our tabs are, and we can go ahead and line them up with our holes in the side rail, and then we can go ahead and tighten them down. All right, so you may need a small pick, maybe a small screwdriver, something like that, to grab these sometimes when you're first starting them. So I just kind of grabbed a hold out with a small pick, just so I can pull it all the way forward so I can get this bolt started. Because again, like I said before, if you flip them the other way, you just don't quite have enough to get grabbed on there. So, and once we got that one on, the other side is in place, and we can go ahead and screw that one in. Now we don't want to tighten these down all the way quite yet, because we're going to need to adjust the rack, get everything lined up, and get the rack centered where we want it. All right, so you're gonna have 3 crossbars for the top of your rack, and then you're also gonna have 2 braces that are gonna go at the front. We'll show you how to install. We're gonna start with our first front one, and we'll get this one put in, and then we'll get our braces put in after that, and then we'll move on to our 2 rears. All right, so we got our crossbar set up here in place. So this is when we're going to take our button heads, one of our washers. We're going to go ahead and put these in all 4 holes. And then we can take and put our nylocks on the other side. And once we have these on both sides, then we can go ahead and tighten those, and then we'll put our braces in. All right, so our button heads are just a 3/16 Allen, and then the nylock on the other side is going to be a 13 millimeter. So we're just going to hold both those. We're just going to go ahead and tighten these down. And I did spray some WD-40 just on the threads of the bolts, just to help with the nylocks. Sometimes nylocks like to tighten up a little bit too quickly, and they'll lock up on you. So we just spray a little bit on there just to help them. Right on the bed real quick. All right, so we're going to put our braces in, and the lettering is going to be at the bottom side of our sides here. And so we're just using the same hardware, just one button head and a nylock. And we're going to put this top one in first here. Just kind of hold that one in place. And then we can put our bottom hole in. All right, I'm going to do the other side. All right, so I tighten the bottom bolt first, and again, it's just our Allen head and the 13 millimeter. And then we'll get the 13/16 Allen up top and 13 millimeter on the bottom. And we'll go ahead and tighten this one down. All right, so with our front crossbar in and our two braces in, we can go ahead and move on to our second one and then the third one, and then we'll adjust the rack, make sure it's where we want it and where it's centered. And then we can go ahead and tighten down the sides on the rack, and we'll be all finished up. All right, so now with all the crossbars installed and tightened down, I went ahead and loosened up the 6 bolts that hold our sides on, and so that I can move the rack. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna line this rack up just with this edge of the top bed cap. So I'm gonna pull it forward just like that, get that lined up, line up the other side, and then I can go ahead and tighten everything back down. All right, so now that I got it centered where I want it, I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna tighten these back down. We'll be all finished up. All right, so that takes care of the install on our Gladiator bed rack. This is a cab height rack. And if you guys have any questions or concerns, give us a call here at CBI Offroad or email us. Thanks.